Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for the Oklahoma Sooner fans coming out of the recruiting trail. Five-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi making it official, committing to the Oklahoma Sooners. Where you start with Michael Fasusi, it's a big for a couple of different reasons. Let's talk about the prospect first. This kid is really about as physically imposing as it gets in this offensive tackle class at 6'5", 295. When he gets his hands on you, it's devastating for opposing defensive linemen. I mean, not only the lower body strength, but really the upper body strength in terms of how he can physically overwhelm opposing defensive linemen. Oklahoma's looking for these kind of guys on their offensive line. Michael Fasusi gives them that kind of freaky body mover on the offensive line, for lack of better words. And then I think the second storyline you want to get into is, Coach Bill B has taken some heat for what he's done on the recruiting trail, but you look up at the 2025 class and say, you got two top 10 offensive tackles committed to Oklahoma in this 2025 cycle with Ryan Foji and Michael Fasusi. This is a massive storyline. We talk about this all the time. If you were to choose one position that you get right at the high school ranks, it has to be the offensive tackle spot. I mean, you have other positions that in this era of college football, if you miss on the high school trail, you can go address in the transfer portal. The premier offensive tackles, they don't hit the transfer portal. And you look at Oklahoma trying to fill in their tackles in the transfer portal over the last couple of months. Michael Tarquin, Spencer Brown, solid veteran bodies who have a lot of playing experience, but we're not talking about those guys as difference makers at the offensive tackle spot. If you want to get difference makers, you got to get them at the high school level, because you don't see these kind of tackles hit the transfer portal all too often, and every program's looking for it. And so you look at getting Fasusi and getting Ryan Foji, two guys that, have all SEC ceilings. I think that's a massive story for Oklahoma. Now I want to get into the film of Michael Fasusi, talk about what he brings to this Oklahoma offensive line. Now, before we do, and as always, massive shout out to the Oklahoma fans. It's been a blast talking this program on the recruiting trail over the last couple of months. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas, it means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into Michael Fasusi. And I want to start with the power that this kid has in his hands. And we kind of talked about it off the jump. Oklahoma going back to 2023, I think you wish you had a little bit more physically imposing offensive line play in the 2023 class, and you want to make sure it's there heading into the SEC over the next couple of years. Michael Fasusi is one of those guys. I mean, talk about raw horsepower. Michael Fasusi is at the top of the class in 2025 in terms of offensive linemen that really can just impose his will on opposing defensive linemen, but I think he blends that horsepower, that power with he's an elite athlete. Now, 6'5", 295, you take a look at the body composition and say this kid carries 295 exceptionally well. You look at him in pass pro, say feet doesn't get stuck in the ground. He's gliding on the turf, really, really comfortable in space. And then you look at him working to the second level and run concepts. This is a kid that can get to the second level, get to backside linebackers, get up to safeties. It's hard to find 6'5", 300-pound guys that have the athleticism and the physical tools that Michael Fasusi has. And I think something that, probably gets overlooked a little bit, and kind of the differentiator between him and a guy like Andrew Babaloa, so to speak, Michael Fasusi is pretty dang developed. I mean, you turn on the film and say hand placement looks pretty good. Obviously, will continue to get developed under Coach Bill B, but this is a guy that, yeah, he's raw and has really good traits, but there's also a lot to like about his game right now going into a senior year, which I think is a really big storyline too. I think this is a kid that, is physically and potentially technically ready to play relatively early for this Oklahoma offensive line. And we've seen guys play early, right? Go back to Caden Green. I think Eugene Brooks probably going to get some burn as a true freshman. He's much more developed, I think, technically than Ryan Foji. Definitely physically more developed. So you look at Michael Fasusi and say, Jake Taylor, Jacob Sexton have really good seasons, potentially go to the NFL draft. Michael Fasusi would probably throw his hat in the ring as a starting offensive tackle, potentially as a true freshman. Now, obviously, that's a long ways away. Let's get into the film of Michael Fasusi. And I think where you want to start, we're going to roll it back all the way here, is him out of his stance getting the second level is really impressive. I mean, you take a look at playing that right. He plays both sides of the line, which I think is worth noting. I mean, he'll play left tackle, he'll play right tackle, kind of move all the way around. take a look at him get off the ball and get to the second level, backside linebacker. When he gets hands on you, whether you're a defensive lineman, whether you're a linebacker, it's devastating, to kind of put it into simple terms. I mean, this is a guy that when he is engaged, he's just putting guys in the dirt. Yeah, plays with that mean streak that you might want to see a little bit more consistently. Sometimes he's not as mean as you would like him, but you continue to roll through the film and say, hey, when he has hands on you, I mean, he's just so physically overwhelming. When he's engaged with opposing defensive linemen, especially with that upper body strength, I mean, he's just doing what he wants. The grip strength is extremely impressive. Not many defensive linemen get off his blocks. You continue to work the film, pulling around to the play side, again, getting to the second level, eating guys up. I mean, when you have that kind of size, you just smother, overwhelm guys, but he kind of blends that size with really elite athleticism as well. You continue to work through the film. Again, when he's engaged, it's just guys can't get off the blocks. You see that a little bit of a smaller edge. This is a mismatch kind of right off the bat, but this guy's trying to pull away. You just can't. I mean, Michael Fasusi's grip strength, when he gets inside of those shoulders, he's just a steering wheel, man, and he just does what he wants with you. You continue to work through the film, and you really like a lot of the things that Michael Fasusi brings. I love how he gets off the line of scrimmage, which is something that you see a lot of big offensive linemen kind of struggle with. You continue to work through the film. Again, Pat, this is a great rep where, you know, obviously you see the upper body strength, that snap down. He wants to pile dive right here, but he doesn't. He knows he's going to get called for a flag, holds up, looks at his coaches on the sideline, says, I didn't do nothing. I think that Michael Fasusi has that kind of mean streak, but he blends it with some discipline. You continue to work through the film. And again, just a lot of – this is, again, one of the more impressive reps where you're going to see work on a double team and then late in this play have to come off that double and pick up a linebacker that's filling. I mean, you talk about the ability to change direction and get to the second level. Those are rare traits to see offensive linemen have, and Michael Fasusi possesses kind of a lot of those things that you can't teach. You give a guy like Bill Bedenbaugh an opportunity to work with something like Michael Fasusi, he's going to coach him up real well. You take a look at Oklahoma in the 2025 class. Again, my biggest takeaway is we need offensive tackles coming out of the high school ranks. You take a look at Ryan Foji and Michael Fasusi. That's probably the best offensive tackle class that you see, maybe next to Alabama, that's got about 4 or 5. I look at what Oklahoma's doing on the recruiting trail and saying there's a lot to be excited about in terms of what Oklahoma is doing, building this 2025 class, obviously in the running for a few other names that we'll see if they can close on in 2025. We'll cut it there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Probably one of the last times we'll talk Oklahoma recruiting until we got more commitments to break down, as that 2024 season is upon us. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.